So thank you all so much for being here. I'm Robin Zheng, and this is Sarah. And this is Sarah Aronowitz, and we are graduate students in the Department of Philosophy. So our project was on identifying predictors of basically undergraduates in our classes, whether or not they would decide to major in philosophy. So this was motivated by sort of narrower question and a bigger question. The narrow question is what is going on with women and minority students in philosophy. Philosophy as a discipline has very low numbers, so we're at something like 20% women and much fewer minorities. It resembles much more of a STEM field or an engineering field than it does the traditional humanities. So that's something that a lot of people in the discipline have been concerned about, and our department has been concerned about. So that's the sort of narrower question that we'd like to get some insight on. The bigger question, of course, is just it's interesting to know what makes students choose to major in one department as opposed to another, and that was also sort of motivating this study. So basically what we did in most of our time this term was to look at a survey that our department distributed last term, or last year. So in winter 2013, we distributed a paper survey to all of the students currently enrolled in philosophy courses, and we'll talk a little bit about the sorts of questions that were asked in there. But then sort of the next stage, which we're hoping to work on after this, is to use some of the results that we got in that survey to develop another survey that hopefully could be scaled up to different philosophy departments across the country, and also to supplement that survey data with an analysis of data from the registrar's office.
Yeah. Right, so this is a survey that we analyzed. It asks people a bunch of questions. The thing we're going to focus on for this talk is it asked if people decided not to major in philosophy, what were the factors that weighed into their decision of people who originally thought they would. Right, and so these aren't all the answers, but these are the answers that you'll see in the graph. So one of them was that they didn't like the subject. They were worried that philosophy wouldn't help them meet their goals. They had a problem with the professors or the GSIs, and then they thought that the discipline was in some way too hard or their classes were too hard. And so this circled in red, we had two significant correlations between gender and, so if you were female, you were much more likely to say that you left philosophy because it was too hard, and you were also more likely to say that you left it because you didn't like the subject. And this is only of people who gave one or more of these reasons. So that's what you can see here. Of the people, I think the most striking one is, oh, that didn't work. So the most striking one I think is the one in the middle. That's the 0 is if they said no, it wasn't too hard, and 1 is if they did say it was too hard. And you can see that, so there are more male students than female students in the survey in general, but of the people who didn't say it was too hard, there were much more males. And in fact, there were more females than males who said they left philosophy because it was too hard. And then there's also a significant effect on this one there with the subject, and that was people who said the subject of philosophy wasn't suitable to them. Right. And then, yeah, I mean, I guess the interesting thing here, one of the possible explanations is that something about the way the discipline of philosophy portrays itself tells female students that this isn't the sort of field for them, and that might be why people don't like the subject. And then there are other questions about the hard thing that we probably don't have time to get into. And this is just an overview of our next step, which is we're doing this cohort study with data from all the incoming freshmen who took a philosophy course in 2009. And we're trying to sort of get a model of how they progress through their courses and then look at the different types of introductory courses they might take to see whether that affected whether they were going to take another course. So the idea here is really to zone in on, we have this problem with retention of women, which we saw in the previous survey, and also minorities. We have a hypothesis, at least, that we start off with many more women and minorities in introductory courses, and then it sort of drops off. So with this cohort study, we really just want to locate key points and where that's happening, and then we can sort of hone in on the factors that might be involved.
We are working on developing a new survey, sort of given that initial result, the initial two results about philosophy not being interesting and it being too hard. So what we've done is actually look at other climate surveys that have been done by philosophy departments around the country, for example, at Georgia State University and Rutgers University. So they have questions about sort of the climate in the classroom. So some of the questions that we are thinking of adding are things like, I often disagree with the professor, or I often disagree with my students. Yeah, so anyway, new questions to go into the new surveys.
Yeah.